What's up, guys? Welcome to Random Internet Reviews. My name is Nosa. Here we try to review lesser known movies on Netflix and Amazon Prime, shining some limelight on some of the hidden gems. Like me, I'm sure many of you have scrolled through Amazon and Amazon Prime and Netflix trying to look for movies or good TV shows on an evening, and this platform is about trying to shine some limelight on some of the really good ones, so that our process can be a lot quicker and easier for you. Today we'll be looking at one of my favorites. It's called In the Shadow of the Moon. Just before I start, just a spoiler alert here. I will be spoiling most, if not all, of the movie during this review. So if you don't want to be spoiled, so it's best you watch the movie first before coming back to watch the review. So without much ado, let's get started. So this movie stars Boyd Holbrook, who is one of the stars in Knuckles, so quite popular TV show on Netflix. He also stars Michael C. Hall, who is from Dexter, star from Dexter, and Bokeem Woodbine. Hope I haven't checked his name there, but Bokeem Woodbine, he's I'm quite familiar with some of his work. He's it's quite good. He does appear in quite a lot of black comedies as well as other sort of movies as well. But a lot of the movies I've seen in black comedies. Directed by Jim Miko. He's not that famous a director. He's done a movie called Cold in July. I think that's the only work I'm actually sort of familiar with. But based on this movie, I'd say he's pretty good. In terms of the movie, it does open up with the aftermath of an explosion. So like there seems to be an explosion in present day, and there seems to be a lot of destruction, but that's not explained at the start. And then quickly afterwards, the film then jumps back in time to 1988. So for references, we'll treat present day as the current time in which the explosion happened, and every other time will be sort of referenced as whatever year it is at the time. So present day the explosion happened. Now we're back in time to 1988. At this point, where we're thrown straight into meeting our two sort of main protagonists at the start of the movie, which is Boyd Holbrook, the guy from Knuckles, and Bokeem. They're both, sort of police officers investigating a series of murders. We don't quite understand what happened, what the murders, who committed the murders, the technology of the weapon used, because it seemed like the victims were injected with some sort of biological substance that sort of disintegrated their brains, basically. And at the start, you get the vibe that this film is going to be about sort of a detective movie slash a murder mystery. Well, that's the vibe I was getting anyway. And I'm thinking, sounds quite interesting. I like both genres, but how does this sort of murders, how do they connect back to the sort of the explosion happened at the start of the movie or present day? So and then as the movie sort of rolls on, we're then introduced to the Knuckles guy's pregnant wife. We're shown that she's heavily pregnant and that she's about to give birth, which is quite important in this story. But obviously that will sort of connect as I go along. Um, and by the way, I know I've been calling him the Knuckles guy. Boyd Holbrook, he did, he's sort of his performance in Knuckles was quite good. So definitely watch Knuckles. One of my favorite TV shows out there. If you haven't watched it, I don't know what you're doing, but yeah. Then, as the movie goes along, we eventually find out that the suspect, the lady who's going around injecting people, is actually a black lady, right? She's a young black woman, going around killing these people, and you're like, sounds to be a suspect anyway. And then the film then looks at how the police were kind of profiling a lot of black ladies, and random black ladies were dragged off the streets, and they had their pictures taken and whatnot, and they kind of looked at black profiling and sort of how some social topics were touched on, and the black detective gave a sort of comment about how, due to his color of his skin, he's never going to be a detective. The black officer, they both know detectives. The black officer gave a comment about due to the color of his skin, he's probably never going to make a detective. But the film moves on quite quickly. It doesn't really sort of delve into the sort of topics for much longer. Anyway, the film rolls along. The Narcos guy crosses paths with the suspect. Then he chases her for a while, chases her up to a train station, right? And I'm like, okay, right, what's going to happen? He's going to confront her. Are they going to arrest her? And, the film is only half an hour in, right? She's going to arrest the suspect. What's this all about? Come to find out that she knew everything about him. She knew his name. She knew his wife was pregnant. She was talking about his daughter. And then he tries to confront her in terms of he tried to arrest her, and then by accident he pushed her or shocked her and pushed her in front of a train, and she dies basically.
Is this where it happens?
What? What'd you say?
Congratulations on your daughter.
Shut the fuck up. I said get on the ground!
I want you to know I'm sorry about your partner. I never meant to.
Fucking stop talking.
And then immediately after, he was told his wife had labor, so he rushed to the hospital. And unfortunately, his wife, she died giving birth, and so on and so forth. Once all of this happened, in the midst of that, another officer came to him and told him, they recovered the body of the dead suspect, the black young girl who was crushed by the train, and that they ran her name and identified the system, and they couldn't recognize this woman. It was as if she never existed at all, right? Or she doesn't exist at all, right? And he goes, by the way, we looked, there was a bullet lodged in her arm. We dug out the bullet, and he looked at the bullet, and he goes, actually, it's the exact same bullet that comes from a revolver. I don't know how he was able to tell, but he goes, it looks like it comes from your revolver. And the guy was like, but I never shot her, and it was kind of like, how did that happen? And, that this sort of the opening act of the film kind of concludes here. It basically concludes the murder mystery element of the story, where you're like, she was the one killing these people, this suspect, this black lady in the blue hoodie, and then she was killed by the guy from Narcos. The guy from Narcos' wife also dies, giving birth, so he's a father now. And then we go forward in time at this point, right? So we then jump to 1997. Now it seems like the murders are back, right? Because it's like, okay, we jumped 9 years, the murders are back, the same sort of injection to the neck of the victims, and they all seem to the brain just seems to melt away at the same time. And I feel like, right, this doesn't make sense. Everyone who's saying, they're seeing the exact same lady that was seen in 1988. She looks exactly the same. The Narcos guy looks at the sort of videos, his TV videos, and so on and so forth. He noticed that there was the same injury in her arm that he saw in 1988 as in this new lady in 1997. And he's like, how is that possible? She died on the train. She was thrown on the train. Her body was sort of severed. She was buried. They know she's dead. They know where her grave is, kind of thing. It's like, how is it possible that she's come back to life? And he's confused. I'm confused. Everyone is confused in the show. They're trying to figure out what's going on here. Now, minutes later, he has this Indian guy kind of pops up, and then talks about how, sort of lunar circles and some sci-fi, stuff, about how when the moon sort of moves, every 9 years, possibility for people to travel through time every 9 years, and you're like, okay, now we're getting into time travel, we're getting into sort of sci-fi elements here.
What you may know simply as a supermoon or blood moon are actually events of great scientific significance.
Fascinating.
When the lunar cycle reaches exactly the right point, its gravitational forces react with electromagnetic pockets and theoretically creates a kind of bridge.
Yeah, bridge to where?
Another place entirely.
Right, where's this going? Why is this woman, if she is traveling back in time, why is she traveling back in time and killing people? So, there's lots of questions, lots of things you're thinking, trying to sort of analyze the whole thing and trying to figure out what's actually happening here. In amongst this, he obviously confronts her as well, again for the second time, and he's thinking how you alive, sort of thing. Anyway, by this point he's grown older, so the film obviously needed to make sure we realize that he's grown slightly older, obviously 9 years. The Bokeem's character, the black detective, he's now bald, a little bit bald, and has a limp, although that's not explained. The film jumps again to 2006, so 9 years again, so it's 18 years after the original, 18 years after the suspect died on the train. Now the Narcos guy from Narcos, he's a lot older now. He's got grey hair all over the place. His beard is looking rough, right? Very rough.
Suppose it is.
And I'd say I've been pretty generous with my time. Lots of other things a girl could be doing.
I guess not that rough, but he's looking a bit rough. The Narcos guy, obviously he's in that time, in this past 18 years, his daughter's grown, but his daughter has mainly been taken care of by Dexter, or Michael C. Hall's character, and because he's her uncle. And in that time, he's not really been a good dad. He's spent his entire time devoted to finding this girl. Like, he's now believed that she is traveling through time, and no one else believes, because everyone thinks he's crazy. Is he doing this sort of movies? Everyone thinks the person who's right is crazy. But in doing so, in chasing her, he's kind of neglected his daughter in a way, and which obviously is not good. And then he chased her, and then, in this part of the movie, or in this sort of timeline, or time in 2006, he chases her to the extent that he finds her in someone's house, and then he shoots her, and the bullet then gets lodged in her arm 18 years after it was found in her corpse in 1988. So you're like, right, that's where that bullet comes from. That makes sense, because in 1988, when they found her corpse, it's like, how did his bullet get in her body? But right now, it does make sense that she's traveling backwards through time. So the bullet being lodged in her arm hadn't happened in 1988, but it was in her arm. Anyway, I'm not going to get too sort of down the rabbit hole of time loops. But basically, she's traveling backwards in time, and Narcos guy is going forward in time. So, the bullet get lodged in her arm. They have their sort of struggles, and he chases her up to like a beach, and then climbs through a hole, and then finds out where her sort of her portal lands, that the thing she uses to travel through time, and then it finds where it normally lands, where it's located and stuff, and then jump again to 2015. Now, 2015 is 9 years after 2006. He knows that she comes every 9 years. Obviously he's waiting there at that specific time for her to come, and then now he's really old. Like, he's like Tom Hanks from Castaway. Like, he's waiting for her to turn up. and she turns up. Knight confronts her with gun, trying to kill her, and then she's like, "Oh, you can't kill me because I'm here to sort of save the world, and I'm also your granddaughter." And he's like, "What would you mean you're my granddaughter?" And then she goes on to explain how sort of she's sent back in time by himself in the future to sort of commit all these murders of people who in the future are going to commit that sort of terrorist attack. So basically, the terrorist attack we saw at the start of the film was organized by the people she's basically going back in time to kill. But the person who sends her to go back in time is him and the Indian guy. And you're like, wow, that they've kind of connected everything together. But, you know, like, now you're then looking at it and thinking, even though this movie is about the sci-fi element and time jumps and whatnot, there is also the human element of it, right? Which is connected to the sci-fi element, because when you think about him as a character, right, he is chasing like a future version of his granddaughter, right? The whole movie is him chasing the future version of his granddaughter. But by doing so, he's neglecting his daughter in the present and his granddaughter in the present, right? Which is kind of, yeah. I feel like that element is quite interesting to think about, because he's literally neglecting her in the present to chase after her in the future, and he literally killed her because of that, because he chased her and he killed her, a future version of his granddaughter. I just thought that was kind of interesting. But in any case, the actual time travel element is also quite interesting. But I do feel like this movie stayed away from the complicated elements of time travel. Like, for instance, the suspects, i.e. the black lady in the blue, or his granddaughter, the black lady in the blue dress that goes back in time, she never ever comes in contact with herself in the past. So, like, she never comes in contact with herself when she was a baby or herself when she was a kid, right? I know obviously the movie didn't cover that aspect of it. But he himself, when he asked her, "Oh, can I go into the portal and ask myself in the future to stop sending you back in time because I know that you're going to die. I'm going to kill you in 1988. She said, "No, what is done is done. You can't go to the future and ask yourself to not send me back in time." And I was like, but like that's the logical thing to do, because you'd be like, man, you kind of end up dying in this whole thing. I don't want you to die, so I'm gonna not make it happen. But she gives some sort of explanation about something about, what is done is already done. I'm gonna die, and that's already planned. And you're thinking, well, if you're saying that, what is already done is done, and I'm gonna die, and the events are set in stone, that is kind of contradiction, because the whole point of her going back in time is literally to change an event in the future, right? So that the explosion or the terrorist attack did not happen. So it was a bit of a contradiction there. I feel like they kind of copped out there, but I'll let them off, because the movie is a good movie. I mean, yeah, it is well put together. There is a lot of interesting elements about it. I think the one thing that is definitely interesting, the fact that he spent the entire movie chasing a future version of his granddaughter, while neglecting his daughter and his granddaughter in the present. So I feel that element is quite interesting there, and it is a great movie. You should definitely watch it. It's definitely one of my favorite movies of the year. I know it came out in 2019. I only watched it this year. It's definitely a good movie. You should definitely check it out.
When I was 9, an ordinary man parked an ordinary truck full of homemade explosives downtown and watched it explode.
Electromagnetic
7,
levels primed.
6,
Programming
5,
destination.
4,
2050.
His attack was just the first.
1.
11,000 people died the first morning. Millions more in the civil war that followed.
Online.
It fed on anger. It spread through fear.
Initializing.
It made monsters out of men,
Time bridge.
until even the ordinary were broken. One by one. The voice that gave birth to a movement turned a small crack into a great divide. It drowned out the best of us, and it amplified the worst. So we found a way to silence it. We found a way to undo the damage,
Fluid active. Time stream online.
to disconnect the dots.
Subject 4 terminated. Subject 3 terminated. Subject 2.
I volunteered to untell the story.
Subject 1 terminated.
I came back to erase an idea. Because some thoughts are meant to be buried. Some before they even begin. When the war between us all disappears, it won't make a sound. It won't leave a scar. There will be no great tale in your time. You will love, and you will heal. You will teach me how to live, and you will make me who I am. A fighter, just like you. Because right now, both of our lives are about to begin.
It's okay. It's okay. Everything's going to be okay. To finish up this video, if you obviously enjoyed what I'm doing here and you enjoyed this sort of reviews, please subscribe and turn on the notification and like this video. It goes a lot in helping the channel so that more people can see these sort of videos as I do more over time. Anyway, take care. Have a good day.